Welcome everyone to our fireside chat. Tonight we have Alethe Denis with us. Instead of me butchering her intro, I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So hi everyone, my name is Alethe Denis, and I'm probably most well known for receiving a black badge from DEF CON after I won the 10th anniversary Social Engineering Capture the Flag contest at DEF CON in 2019. So I'm currently the reigning champion. I am also a consultant on the professional services team at Critical Insight, or CI Security, based in Seattle. And we do security assessments, penetration testing, phishing, lots of phishing. So that is kind of me in a nutshell. I'm sure we'll learn more as the conversation continues.
Alethe, that 2019 DEF CON was actually my first DEF CON. So I remember it was
That
like my
is
intro to the entire
Oh,
community.
really?
Yeah. And I remember I had the task of guarding like the 5 chairs in the front
Yeah.
for everyone
Yeah.
and doing the timer, which was actually great for me because I had been fishing for a couple months, but I had never seen it on this scale or that competition. So that was really fun. So it's kind of cool
I,
now that we know
I
each other a little
actually
bit more.
remember. Yeah. No, I remember that because the timer was just like right there in my line of vision, and I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't recognize her. Who is she? I'm supposed to be doing something. And so,
I
yeah.
I had no
And
idea who
then,
anyone was. And I think I told you and like Rachel Toback at one point that they couldn't sit there. And I'm
yeah.
like, I'm just doing what I was told. And then Chris is like motioning from the stage, like, they can sit there, they can sit there. I'm like,
Shelby's like,
sorry.
you can't sit with us.
Like, yeah,
You
sorry, they
can't
said
sit with
no.
us. So I couldn't sit at the front because the baby was just like, no. And so I didn't want to be distracting to whoever was in the booth, because then I felt like they'd be like, there's a flag on the play. Like the other contestants distracting everyone else with her baby. So I just like stood at the back of the room, and I think some people were like, why isn't she sitting up front? It's just a baby. But it was like really stressful for me because I didn't want to be, interfering with anybody else's
We've
ability to do the fishing.
dubbed the baby DEF CON baby.
Yes, DEF CON
How old
baby.
is DEF CON baby now?
She will be 2 in May.
So big. So
So
how old was she approximately about
3
when you were
months.
there? 3 months. Okay.
So yeah, May, June,
I
July,
mean, it was a great
4,
distraction
yeah,
for
4 months.
me because I was front row, and when you were up
Oh,
there, I
3
was
months,
like
yeah.
split between listening to you and like looking at your baby because she's so cute.
Okay. So full disclosure, like most people know, I have 4 children. Okay. So there was no way that I would have been able to do what I did taking a baby to Vegas, period, let alone taking a baby to Vegas to go to DEF CON, let alone taking a baby to Vegas to go to DEF CON to compete in a competition. Like that was just insanity. And I do not recommend it, A. But just having the experience of like 3 previous babies, like I knew exactly what to expect. I knew exactly what to bring. I had, sufficient time to plan. I had already committed to do the contest. So I was like, well, I can't back out now. And it was one of those things that in hindsight, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? Honestly, like, what was I thinking? And
And how
then,
did it work out so well for you?
so here's the secret.
Okay, tell
Right?
us, please.
So I have a 3-month-old baby. I'm at DEF CON. I have to feed and change and make sure that this thing stays alive while I am trying to prep to go in the booth, right? So my focus is on the kid, really. I mean, my focus is on the baby, like 100%. And so I didn't have time to freak out about anything else. Like I really didn't. The first time I competed, because I competed twice. The year before, 2018, I finished in 6th. I think my report, I was in 5th. And then ultimately, after the calls and me misunderstanding how points work, I ended up in 6th. And so, which was at the time, I was like, holy crud, like I did the thing. Like, wow. And so I was like, success. But my whole body was shaking with adrenaline by the time I finished, just
Oh yeah.
because, and it wasn't so much making the calls as the fact that it took me 12 minutes or 9 minutes to get a human on the phone.
Oh, that's the worst.
And I just kept hitting like voicemail after voicemail after voicemail.
Yeah,
And
and
so
your
I was like
anxiety
all
is just building and
stressed.
building.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm freaking myself out, literally freaking myself out. So then I finally got somebody on the phone and I got a few flags, and it was a lot of fun. There were a couple of times where the crowd was like super energetic, and they applauded and were excited. And I was like, hey, I'm just here for entertainment. Like the SECTF is a giant sideshow for SE Village. Like it really is. Like that pulls people into the village. People become aware. It's like an educational tool, but it's also we're a circus act. so, so I felt like I'm walking a tightrope and I'm going to fall off and it's, mortifying. So I was like, at least I got some flags. I entertained some people. They laughed. It was fun. And then the next year came around and they're like, are you going to compete? And I'm like, well, heck yes. That was like super fun. And now that I know what to expect, I'm going to do this. And then I found out I was pregnant and I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And then I was like, okay, at this age, like 3 months old, they are not mobile. They're not going to run away. They stay in one spot. They're generally content. You don't have to worry about real food. Like it's super easy to take care of an infant if you have the experience. So I was like nursing the baby in the hallway before, like literally 10 minutes before I was supposed to go in the booth and start making phone calls. And I remember Chris's wife came out and was just like, are you nuts? Kind of a look. And she was just like she had the
What are you
most
doing?
she had like the most like immense respect for me, like just doing the thing. And
Yeah.
then she saw me go up and compete. So afterwards she came, she's like, I cannot believe that was you, that you did that. And I'm like, nurse the baby, run to the bathroom, change the diaper. And like, as I'm running, I'm like telling the door people, hey, I'm next in the booth. I'll be right back. I'm not leaving. Like, give me
I'm
5
still
minutes to
here.
change this diaper. Like, I'm coming back. And they're like, okay, crazy lady. And then so I came back and I like tossed the baby to my husband very nicely and gently. And he goes and like sits down in the front row. And I'm like, oh God, I just like the thing that like freaked me out the most, honestly, was that the baby was going to start crying at some point during the calls. And then I would just, like mom brain would just
Yeah.
bypass all of my plans and I would lose my whole strategy. And like the only thing I could think about would be the baby because like just biologically you're hardwired as a parent to just focus on a crying baby. Even once you've had a kid and it's not your kid, if there's some kid crying in public, you just like tunnel vision. And so I was like super freaked about it. The second I said dial number 1, spoof number 1, she started crying. And I was like, this
Oh
isn't
no.
happening. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. I'm a bad mom. Okay, ignore the baby. I'm a bad mom. Ignore the baby. I'm a bad mom. And so I'm like having this like internal fight with myself. And the first person answered the phone and I was just like, I'm in it. And I had to like just use the walls of the booth to keep everything else out. And like I dumped my head down so I couldn't even see out of the window of the front of the booth. And I was like, it's just me and Chris in this together. We're in it together. And like anytime the call would end, I'm like, okay, spoof number 1, call the second number. And like people are like applauding. And then he's like trying to get everybody to, quiet down. And I'm like, you're wasting my time, people. And so,
And you just went through and it was like,
yeah, like
oh
it's
my
a
god, just
blur.
flag after
Like
flag after flag after flag.
now I can't even remember half of what happened, really, just because I was like in just like pure adrenaline overload
Yeah.
and just trying to like keep all of my ish together. Um, but it was so much fun. Like I came up with this idea that I was going to just call their tech support people. Like I knew they had offshore tech support. I was just going to call their tech support people and just get every single support person to go to the link. That's what my like one of my original strategies was once I found out that my calls were scheduled for 5:30 local time for the target. All of their phones went direct to voicemail after 5. So all the direct numbers that I found were garbage, totally useless. And it took me like a total of like 4 or 5 weeks to find a PDF hidden on some random server on the internet that was like their onboarding document that had if you suspect somebody's using technology in a bad way, call this number. And it was their internal IT help desk. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So then, like after hours, I call and test the number. And no matter what option I push, how many times I call in, I'm getting the same person. Like they tasked one IT support person for that whole organization after hours. And I was like, well, this isn't going to work. And so the next thing that I decided was, and this was before remote work was cool, but I decided I was going to target all of their remote employees and the remote salespeople, like regional salespeople specifically, because salespeople don't get paid if they don't answer their phone. And so
Well,
I'm
let me
like,
call the people
they're
that
going to
are
answer the
going to
phone.
answer.
Yeah, I have to find people who will answer after hours, want to help me, and how do I make them want to help me? And so I was like, what if I tell them that we're replacing their computer and I just need to know all of the software that they have on their computer now so I can make sure that it's on the new computer when the IT department configures it and sends it out. And so I came up with this BS story that, their computer hadn't connected to the VPN in a while. And so we needed to verify all the software on the machine. And I think I made it through like that one IT person. I got them to go to the link. Then I hung up after I was trying to end the call nicely. I didn't want to just be like, hang it up. So I wasted a few seconds trying to
You're like,
wrap the
no,
call
no,
up
I have
in like a
everything I
bow. I'm
need
like,
from
I'll just call
you.
you back if I need anything else. Okay, bye. And so I called the first salesperson and he was super duper helpful. I still feel bad. Like I still feel so guilty. That guy was so nice. And so he was super helpful, gave me everything I needed from him. I wrapped that call up and I called the second one. And I think I made a total of 3 calls. Again, it's like super blurry. I don't know. But I think I made a total of 3. But the last person I called was on paternity leave. And he had literally been he'd done 3 months of his 4-month long paternity leave. And I was like, that's so funny. I just had a baby too. And the audience just lost it. And it was
I
so much
remember
fun
that.
just playing off of that dynamic. Because everything I'm saying is totally legit. Like I just come back to
Yeah.
work. I just finished my maternity leave. I just done all the things. And I still feel horrible. Like I feel horrible because he went and he found his lap. Like I was expecting to say, all right, well, thanks. I'm sorry to waste your time. Let me, get back with you when you come back to work kind of a thing. And he's like, oh no, let me go get the computer for you. And I was like, what? So we just
Okay.
did it. I'm like, yeah, well, while that's booting up, do you have the Lenovo ThinkPad computer? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, points.
Yeah, marking
So
them all off.
I was like, oh, I'm a terrible person, but
Well,
it
but
was
think about how
super
many
fun.
people though have seen this now
Yeah.
and have more awareness of all the security, maybe things that malicious parties will target from it. I mean, it's reached so many
Yeah.
people that it's doing more good than your guilt maybe feels. But
Oh,
now
yeah. No,
that
I mean, absolutely. It's really the thing that sucks about it the most is I typically don't hack people unless they know about it and they're paying me to do it.
right,
so
it's
so
different,
the fact
right?
that none of them know what was happening, I wonder what happened. Did they call back in 2 weeks and ask where their computers were? How did that go? And so yeah, there was definitely a concern on my part. And then of course when I got home from DEF CON and there was a German online newspaper article that named the target and my name in the same article.
Oh no, they
And at
so
2, oh yeah, okay. So here's what happened. After the competition, everybody's walking up to me and talking to me. Everybody just heard who the target is. Everybody knows who's there in the room, who the target is. And I know who they are. So I'm talking to this reporter and I'm being very careful to be media appropriate and give the target type answers. And people are walking up going, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that, and spilling all the details. Well, because it was kind of in the same context of that conversation, the reporter included it in the article. And it didn't even occur to me until it was 2 a.m. on Monday morning and I got home from DEF CON. Another story in that one there. Yeah, I'm going to get to that. But 2 a.m. and I start seeing all the Google alerts on my name popping. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And it was this article that this German reporter for this magazine, like a financial magazine, had written. And he named the target for me and the target for another contestant. But because that contestant didn't give their real name when they competed, it wasn't a super big issue. So I had to email this guy at 2:30 a.m. And I was like, hey, you think maybe you could redact the names of the target and just change it to a tobacco company, perhaps? And so he went ahead and changed that and then added a note has been edited at the request of the contestants or something like that. And I was like, thank you. And
Oh,
because it was
that's
German, it
good.
didn't
It's like mini
it
heart
didn't
attack.
go wide. Oh yeah, no, I was freaking out because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get a cease and desist from the company and all the stuff's gonna happen. And I was super mortified.
Oh my goodness.
But so we had planned to fly home on Sunday afternoon, even though I know, Chris, I know if you're listening, I agreed that I would be available for closing ceremonies, but I never thought that I would actually have to be there. So I booked my flight for like 3:30 on Sunday, and this particular airline didn't have any. They didn't have any other flights. Like they're like that's the flight out to that airport from Vegas that day. That's it. And so I had to stay for closing ceremonies that started at 4, but my flight was at 3:30, so I missed my flight.
Oh
But
my
I
goodness.
also had to be home before school started on Monday morning because I had a kid who was doing their first day of school. Like you can't miss that.
Oh my
So
word.
directly after closing ceremonies, like I walked off the stage, we ran to the hotel, got our bags out of the bell check thing counter, went to the airport, rented a car, and drove home like overnight. And I got home at like 2:30 in the morning. Then the disaster with the German article happened. So I went to bed at like 4, like this, couldn't sleep. And then at 5 o'clock or 5:30, I got up and made like chalkboard, like first day of school and their name and all the thing, and did all the, mom stuff. Took
Man, and
all the
I
first day
thought
of
that
school
was a
pictures.
long weekend for me, but now I'm like, I'm just gonna.
It was freaking nuts. So then I've got like all the pictures of the kid with backpacks and chalkboards and do all that stuff. And then I had to go to work. I'm like, who am I? But
Oh my goodness. How
yeah,
did you
no,
survive that
freaking nuts.
week?
I
Just on
I don't know.
autopilot?
And then a month later, I decided I would just take the baby to DerbyCon by myself and
Yeah.
compete in the CTF.
So there, I feel like my brain needs to process and rest from that month and a half of your life, just from hearing about it. I haven't quite caught up yet. I don't know how to
I am
handle it.
vicariously
So for
exhausted.
people who
I
are
need a break.
asking why my husband didn't offer to change the diaper, okay, there's no scenario where my husband isn't perfectly willing to change a diaper, feed a baby, take care of the kids. Like he's literally taking care of all the kids right now so I can be here. So I don't want anyone to have any misconception that I don't have a wonderfully supportive human as a partner in life with all 4 of the kids. So please don't understand that there's any deficiencies on that side of things. Um, this was a 3-month-old baby that I was nursing. There was no sense in me taking the baby to the back, from the back of the room to the front of the room to give it to somebody else to take it to the bathroom to change it. So for the sake of efficiency, 5 minutes to change a baby wasn't a big deal. And it makes for a way better story now. So that's why.
It's true. I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, oh, what's gonna happen?
That's
And
the only
okay, so
reason is for the story.
yeah. So before we go and dive into DerbyCon, because another great story. We had another great weekend there. What about
Mhm.
you mentioned one point, and I'm trying to bring it back up before I completely forget it because there are just so many things and I'm still in
There's a
awe
lot.
of that entire story. Now, you instantly had rapport with the last person that
Mhm.
you talked to, right? Because
Yeah.
you found he was on paternity leave, you just had a baby, so that's great. But you obviously had gotten flags prior to that on your 2 other calls. You had
Yes.
points already. What were some things that you did to build that rapport? Because that wasn't there for you. You obviously are skilled at building that rapport. So do you have any tips or tricks for us?
Yes, absolutely. So the first time I competed, I kind of failed at building that rapport very, very quickly because you've got 20 minutes to make as many calls as you can to score as many points as you can. Like that is it. And so with the first time I competed, I noticed that I wasn't really establishing credibility because I had chosen to present myself as a vendor, a third party, and an outsider to the
Mhm.
target organization. The biggest thing that I did to fix that and establish that instant rapport is that I changed from using an external pretext to using an internal pretext. So I said, I work for the same company that you work for. I'm based at the headquarters in this city. And that's how I started the call. Like, hi, this is Bethany. And I raised the tone of my voice just a little bit so I could sound a teeny bit younger. And then I gave myself a name that was more appropriate to like a 20-year-old that maybe tasked with helping an IT department to get a list, like an administrative task. And then I said that I was there at the headquarters and I gave the city that headquarters was located in. And they never questioned me, not once. They just accepted that I was who I said I was, that I was an internal person, and that implied trust. That trust was inherited from the fact that they were employees of the same company and were
Mhm.
part of the same tribe. So that helped a lot.
Uh,
And
From
then
from hearing from hearing all the research that you had
Mhm.
done before that, though, I'm sure you had things in place for if they did question you, right? Did you
I
have
did,
OSINT
but
that you didn't use on the call?
I did use my maternity leave to basically make OSINTing this company my job. Like that's what I was doing if I wasn't taking care of a baby. And so I got a little crazy with this because at one point one of my friends was like, "Are you just trying to play again, or like are you going to like try to win this year?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to win. Like
This is
I don't
it.
really want to win because then I can't play anymore, but I'm gonna try to win." And so because I'm too competitive to not to. So anyway,
Yeah, I struggle with
I
the same thing, but it works out
so
sometimes. So
it does. It does work out. So anyway, I decided I was targeting the regional salespeople. I knew that they were remote. I knew that they had company cars, company cell phones. I expected that they would have a company laptop too. And that was a gamble. Like I just trusted that that would be the case. And I learned all that from the Glassdoor company reviews. So those things are a gold mine of information. So I decided that I was going to take all of the people whose cell phone numbers, like their company cell phone numbers, I found, who were regional salespeople, and I was going to, and this is completely allowed in the context of the conversation or the competition for anyone who's not familiar. You can call the numbers, you just cannot engage with that person. You cannot say hello, you cannot do anything but dial the number and be on mute. And if they pick up, you can listen to how they answer the call. That is all. Then you have to hang up. So I called all these people to make sure that a human answered that number, and I graded them on how well they answered the phone. So, did they answer the phone? Did they sound like that they were nice people and that would be helpful? Did they sound enthusiastic and happy about it? If they sounded like they were like, "Oh, hello," then that wasn't somebody that I wanted to talk to, right?
hmm
And so I gave them all a score, like 1 to 10. Like the person answered the phone, they sounded super happy, they sounded super helpful. That's like a 9 or a 10. And if they didn't answer the phone, it was a 0. And if it was somewhere in between, I would just like give them a grade, like based on how I felt that day. And I called each one of these people like every Thursday was the day that I was assigned to make these calls. So every Thursday after hours, their time at that window of time, I would call these people and I would spoof, hypothetically, I would spoof the number of a known spam number for that area. So same area code as where they were. And if they Googled it, it would say, "Oh, this is a known spam number." And then I would gauge their response and I would give them a grade. And then at the end of like a month of doing these, I would then tally up their total score and then average it. I know, psychotic. I know,
You know
I'm
your
aware.
disc profile?
I think you do.
I think I might. I'm
And then,
sensing some similarities here.
well, and this is like another story, but this is why I think we clicked so well at DerbyCon because I was just like, "You're like me." So then
We have the
at the
same
end,
kind
I
of
like
crazy.
graded them all. Yeah, exactly. The same kind of crazy is a great way to describe it. So then I graded them all, and it was like the people that had the highest scores just, sort to the top. And that was the list of people I was going to call. And the paternity guy was actually the guy that was ranked after the guy before him. Another good tip there is I absolutely take advantage of all general stereotypical biases. I
Yep.
would love to live in a world where they do not exist, but they do. And I take advantage of them as a social engineer for the purpose of educating people that they are deficient if they allow their
hmm
biases to, you know, uh, inform their behavior.
Yeah. Well, back to you raising your voice, trying to sound younger, using a younger sounding name
I
that fits the
called
generation,
only
playing to the
men.
bias. I do that on almost every vishing call. I raise my
Right.
voice and I change my name to something really young sounding. And can you help me? And
Like, yeah,
yep,
exactly.
it
And
works.
I legitimately targeted men who were over the age of like 25 or 30 based on what I could find online. And it was like the guy before the guy, the paternity guy. was this person I was going to call. And at the last minute, I was like, nope, I'm calling 4 instead of 3 because I just got a weird vibe off 3 and it was like a toss up. Like I didn't know if he would be super helpful, but I was pretty sure that the next guy would be. And I was just like, nope, skip 3, go to 4. Like I don't have enough time to mess around here. And so that's what I did. But yeah, I took advantage of biases. I did tons of research. I made sure I was completely prepared as far as like if they challenged me, I had a good reason and I knew what the support number was. And I was just going to be like, yeah, you're welcome to go ahead and call support if you're not comfortable talking to me. But otherwise, it's going to delay the process here because first come, first serve and, scarcity. And
Yep.
so I was just going to try to yeah, sure, go ahead. If you need to check with so-and-so, that's fine. But just, understand I've got like 10 more people on my list and then you're going to go, after them as far as getting your new laptop. And just
Oh, that's great.
pray
I
that it
wanna
works.
I wanna like go back in time and sit there again and listen again
I want to
after
go
just
back
like
there in
having met
time and
you,
sit
learned
there and watch
more.
me do it too, because I
Yeah,
forgot everything that we
I
talked
know.
about. I mean, I remember the first time I competed better than I remember the second time.
Really?
And I think it was because I was just so stressed out about making sure that the baby was going to be okay and just distracted. But the first time I competed, I I called, it was a transportation company. That was the theme that year. You can find all the juicy details in the reports, BTW. But it was a transportation company, and I had like these super elaborate pretexts for each individual that I found. And I think that's a common mistake that
Hmm.
tons of first timers make, especially in a scenario where you've got 20 minutes and there's a lot of luck involved with getting people on the phone and getting people to cooperate. It's really, really great if you can decide on a pretext that is going to allow you to be more dynamic and to be more responsive to how that person reacts to you rather than sticking to like a specific script. And I
Hmm.
tried to do that. Like I was mindful of that,
Well,
but
that's a great point. A lot of people get lost in the details that you're never gonna end up using on the call.
mhm,
And if you get in a spot where you start explaining all of those details, you're giving that person time to think about it, right?
right,
So it
right. Yeah,
feels better for
exactly.
you, but what you're doing is allowing them
Yes.
to start processing what you're
You're giving
saying and
them
picking holes
more
in your
opportunities
pretext.
to object to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so while some people feel that they can kind of manipulate somebody based on giving them too many details and kind of using that like human buffer overflow situation,
Mhm.
I find that if you give them limited details, there are fewer paths that their mind can go down to create challenges and objections to what you're saying. So
Agreed.
I
And
didn't
you
even
you
give
can
them a
still
last
use
name.
that nice. You can still use that overflow system, but in a different way. You can overflow them
Right.
with speaking quickly, asking for help, using scarcity,
Yeah.
building the rapport, all the things that you
And
did,
then
just
that
in
knee
what,
jerk,
yep,
helpful emotional response that
right.
happens when you seem like a damsel in distress,
Yes.
basically. But yeah, I mean, it sucks to say, but people are very vulnerable through their own bias, and um, they're just these things that have been
It's,
ingrained in us through
yeah.
society, through how our parents raise us. Like, this sounds messed up, but I don't teach my kids to share in the way that most parents teach their kids to share. Like, you got to go ahead and share that with your brother. No, like, he had it first. Like, when he's done playing with it, then so and so can have a turn. But
Hmm.
there's not this like, hey, I like your Lamborghini, give it to me, I want to try it out thing that happens when you're an adult. So I feel like you're setting a unrealistic expectation for how your kid is going to adult in the future if they think that they can just demand something under the premise that we should all share things. So, I mean, there's these types of dynamics that happen just as you're going through life. There's things that are completely out of the control of your parents, the environmental impact of school and friends and teachers and all these other things. But there are a lot of stereotypical and very generalized biases that you can take advantage of as a social engineer. For example, I did a phishing campaign last week where it was a client who had a conference venue. I'm trying to redact things in my brain as I'm talking. So they had a conference venue, and I went on Instagram and found pictures of this client's location that were geotagged to the location. And I found that there was an organization of realtors who use their conference venue on a regular basis. And so I went on to that Realtor Association's website, found their secretary, posed as the secretary, sent the fish. And I said something along the lines of, hey, we're trying to book your conference center again. And I wanted to know if you'd be willing to set up a date and time for us to have this event. Click on this link to view more details about the event. And then I said, and if you're not the right person for me to be talking to, click this link to give me the information of the right person. Like, everyone wants to pass the buck, right? Like, I don't want to be responsible for telling you no. Like, I'll just send you to somebody else. And so I had people, I'm sorry, this is horrible. They paid me to do it. It's in a signed SOW. Anyway, so I had people that not only clicked the link, but they opened the email on multiple devices and clicked the link over 20 times to try to give the information of the person who could deal with this so they wouldn't have to deal with it.
So did your link dead end then?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't have a form, because
They
to me,
didn't-
I'm like, oh, you can get all the employees' information, then email them, and
Yeah,
but you know, you
that's
you have
like
scope
stage
to
2.
deal with.
I
So
gotta
yeah,
play fair in the beginning. So I
yeah.
just gave them like a dead link so we could like baseline everyone on the team and just kind of get a good
Mhm.
feel of where they were
Right.
at. Next level is that we try to do credential
Yeah.
phishing and things like that.
Oh, that's fun. And I
So
like that.
yeah,
And
it's just
another thing
this.
you use, curiosity. Don't give them all the information at
Mm-hmm.
once. A little bit something.
Right. Yeah, and
Exactly.
I mean, I absolutely have fish that are way less successful. I mean, that definitely does happen, and that's something that you can learn from. Like, this type of client generally uses this type of vendor.
Mhm.
We'll go ahead and do like a maintenance request fish. Completely failed miserably, and it's just because inappropriate targeting. Like, these people don't handle maintenance requests and things like that. It was a poor choice to send the entire company the maintenance request or technician scheduling type email. And so those are things that, you have to do a little bit of recon on your target to figure out,
Right.
who they are. And if it's white box where you have emails, you have names, try to get departments, at least get functions so that you can more precisely target your emails and those types of fish so that you can be more successful um, in that regard. From the attacker's perspective, yes, I understand it's not success for the client, but it's great to get a good baseline. And I think that it's okay for people to fail when it's in a supportive environment where the emphasis is learning and there's a safety net. There's no negative
Yep.
repercussions to failing during a test other than maybe some brief embarrassment. But if you've hired a company that's going to embarrass you, then you've hired the wrong company,
Absolutely.
in my opinion. But yeah, I think, most people have these stereotypical biases, and things like social engineering can help people become more aware of them so that they don't feel those ways. Um, and they're a little bit more analytical, and they use their critical thinking skills when they're presented with opportunities for them to fail or, get lured in by a fish.
Yeah, there's not one person in the world that is completely impervious to any of these emotional triggers
Absolutely
that we
not.
rely on to fish and fish people. Every single
Yeah.
one of us has probably clicked on a link, or if you've not, you've probably given away information you didn't realize you were giving away. It it's a lot about your
Happens to every
environment. What
yeah,
yeah.
Mandy has never done that. Mandy has never done
Indeed.
that. So
Never
one of the
me
things
either.
that drove me into learning as much as I possibly could about social engineering was I'd been to DEF CON a few times. I'd heard the phrase a couple times. And it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I got a call at like 7:30 in the morning. Like, coffee was still full on the desk, and they had spoofed my wireless cell phone company support number. Like, the customer service number was on the screen of the phone. I answered the phone. It sounded exactly like the demographic of person who would be working in their call center. And I thought, yeah, this is totally normal. Like, they called me to ask me a question. They wanted me to confirm the account, give them the PIN code. I gave them the PIN code, and I got off the phone and I went, that was a little bit weird. Why would they call me out of the blue and ask me for my PIN code on my wireless account so that they could give me a bill credit? That makes no sense. And so I immediately called the wireless company, and they, of course, confirmed that they would never call me to give me a credit. That is silly. And so I was able to change the 4-digit PIN, and I was like, okay, nobody is ever doing that to me again. And that's kind of what spurred this whole thing on. And then, I mean, the SECTF was just a cool excuse to make myself learn the thing and learn how to do the thing successfully, because #competitive. So that's just kind of how that all
And
happened.
you dominated. So And then so okay, well, one thing before I go on, again, you said that there's a lot of luck involved in getting people on the phone, but you put so much time into figuring that out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, there
So
might be some luck involved, but also it's dedication, clearly, because how much time you put into figuring out who is going to answer, doing the
mhm.
OSINT, putting the work in.
So the training that I put together to support ILF and to raise money for ILF was really centered around this concept of how to be successful doing pretexting. Because when I was looking at how to do pretexting, like Google how to pretext, and there's really very, very little out there on the interwebs.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris's books were like the foundation for everything that I did as far as the SECTF was concerned. So I was like, I want to provide people with more information about how these things are developed. And I did a whole talk on it that started off at B-Side San Francisco and just kind of like went to every conference that was virtual last year. And it was so fun because every time I did the talk, I get to update, the content, find a new target, make it interesting. And it just kind of grew into this thing that eventually became a training. And there's four, I think, three areas actually where pretext can fail. And that's, we've already talked about making them too complex or specific to one person or too detailed. Then there's the lack of preparation, proper recon, things like that. And then there's the misalignment between the type of pretext and your tone and your ability to really masterfully deliver that pretext. And
That's
so while there is
interesting.
luck,
Wait, can you say that again? Because I think
yes.
that's something a lot of us maybe have pinpointed, but not pinpointed how to phrase. So that I just need to hear this again.
So first of all, I would say the simplicity aspect,
Mhm.
keeping things simple, not too many details. You don't want to give the other person a way to challenge you or object to what you're saying.
The third point with the misalignment is what's blowing my
Oh
mind,
yeah.
though.
Yeah. So your ability to match your tone, who you are, how you deliver that pretext, and masterfully become like the acting part,
Hmm.
really,
Yeah.
and delivering that pretext in a way that is believable. And I studied acting very seriously during the last 5 years because I wanted to be able to do this really well. And like I sucked in the third grade play that I did, and I knew that that was going to be an issue.
Like, can you cry on
So
command?
I totally can. I used to cry to get out of PE.
Cry off.
Totally
Let's go.
can.
Amazing.
Let's
You
go.
want me?
Let's go.
I'll do it right now.
Right now. Go.
I'm really
This
tearing
is
up
why we're
right
on
now. I
camera.
can't help it.
Go,
So,
go, go,
so
go.
yeah, no, I'm not doing it right now. I'm not.
I'm
We only
not.
have
I'm not
15 minutes
doing it.
left. We don't have time for this. So no, but I mean, really, I've watched it happen, and this is not. I'm not saying this to drag anyone, but it's very rare that I get to witness other people doing fishing. So the SECTF, it's like I can talk about it because there's no weirdness. But B, there was a very successful social engineer named Chris Kirsch who won a few years back, and he put his reenactment of his call on YouTube. You can go find it and watch it. I have watched several people over the course of the last few years try to reproduce Chris Kirsch's pretext verbatim and deliver it as their own because they're like, hey, it worked. He won. He,
Yeah.
got first place. This is the pretext that I need to use to win this competition, which logically makes sense.
Hmm.
But with Chris, he had the ability to take advantage of those general and stereotypical biases that people have
Yep.
to position himself as an expert IT professional. Like, even though he said, like, oh, I'm Todd from IT, like, he could carry that. He had the confidence, he had the right tone. It was believable that he was Todd from IT and that he'd received some trouble reports about problems on the network, and that all sounded normal. When I watched some female participants, women, try to use that pretext and they were not sure of themselves. It
Hmm.
was almost like how a dog can sense fear. And that's how the target perceived them. Like, what do you mean you've been receiving reports from who? And then they'd get trapped in this completely side conversation about who they were, who was reporting the trouble, what kind of trouble, where are you seeing this, where are you from again, what's your name, and the whole thing goes to heck. And so, yeah, there's some luck involved as far as like, going back to the point of luck. Like the people that I targeted could have absolutely been driving their kid to soccer practice and not picked up the phone. That's the luck component. But once they get on the phone, holding them in, like you're sucking them into your world, you have to believe you are who you say you are.
Yep.
And you have to become that person. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, you have to drop everything else and you have to put on this veil of this character. And I think that the name is just escaping me. Bryan Cranston explains it so wonderfully in his book that once the audience identifies like a pinhole in this veil of this character that you're presenting, the entire thing falls apart. They
It
don't
crumbles.
believe it. It doesn't feel genuine. They're not believing the show. It's just like when you watch network TV now. Most of the characters you're just like, yeah, they're going through the motions.
Yeah.
But then you watch like a really high quality production with like really superb acting and you get sucked into the story and it's believable and you're living it with them. That's the difference. And so for me to like become Bethany, like I had to completely block out everything else around me and just become that person who was tasked with that task and who cared about the person that I was calling because we were coworkers and who wanted to make sure that they got this computer. Like I had to genuinely believe that I was helping them get this computer
Mhm.
in order for it to work. And that is kind of a weird construct to put
No,
together,
it
but it
makes
is
sense.
absolutely essential to making it.
Mhm.
I mean, like, I'm going to be blunt. I get people that message me all the time via DM and say that what I did is super easy and they could have kicked my ass, like literally. And I'm like, hey, I'm super glad that I made it look easy. And I super look forward to watching you try.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where it's really hard to explain. Like, it's kind of like when you're watching sports on TV and you're like, I'm not impressed that he just made that basket from the middle of the court because anybody could do that.
and,
No, they
and then
could
you try
not.
to do it. You're like,
And
oh,
you're like, oh, that was hard. Like I ran 5 feet and I'm out of breath.
well, you made a great point. I'm happy that I made it look easy because that it takes skill and effort and everything to do that. And it's that point that you made, that misalignment is just blowing my mind because I have come to the same conclusions, but I came about it so differently. I hated and got so nervous at the thought of making phone calls before I started
Hmm.
vishing, and then I got hired on to
Yeah.
do a job where I was vishing like 300 calls a week at one point.
Yeah.
And
And
so I got over it, but what I did instead was I knew I couldn't do that. I didn't have the acting training. I didn't have the confidence yet. So I went the opposite way and I make believed that I was an intern until I got over my
hmm
nerves. But people believed
yes.
that. They bought it because it gives them a reason to think, oh,
Yeah.
well, she's nervous. She needs help.
My
There you
phone
go. So it's
pretexts
just
are
a,
usually hot mess because
yeah.
that's exactly what I feel like while I'm on the phone. And so if I'm saying like I'm a scattered hot mess and I'm completely disorganized and I'm super stressed out, it mirrors like how I'm actually behaving because I'm super nervous. And so that really plays well with the type of pretext that I'm using.
Right.
The first time I competed, I asked one of the women that I spoke to when I finally got people on the phone. I asked her the same thing twice. Like I asked her what her male client was for a second time, and she's like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm a little scattered today. I'm working from home with a sick child. I apologize." And she instantly dropped all suspicion, and we just carried the conversation on. And the only reason that I knew, like, I knee jerk reaction that is because I've worked from home for like a decade.
Yeah.
And so anytime that I was like a hot mess and I just didn't have my stuff together for the presentation that I was supposed to be doing or whatever, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I got a sick kid at
Hmm.
home today or the mailman or whatever. And I would like knee jerk that, excuse reaction. And then I knew that she was a parent. So I knew that if I played the kid thing up, she would just be like, oh, yeah, no, I get it. I'm sorry, and we would move on with the conversation. But I think that you have done something remarkable because when I met you, you had just barely begun your career and you were like very nervous.
Yep. I
You were
didn't know
very
what I was
nervous
walking into.
and you were like, hey, I'm on a stage telling people how to fish, this is awkward. And now like I can see all this confidence in you and it's super awesome to see because I really feel like a lot of people can be very successful at this. I used to be completely terrified of calling customers in, very like basic billing scenarios at previous jobs. Like I was just like, I'll just send them 45 emails. How's that? Like, I don't want to talk to people on the phone. And that's one of the things that kind of pushed me, and one of the reasons why my husband really supported me doing the SECTF, because he's like, you need to get more comfortable on the phone. Like
Yeah.
this will help you do that, because I know you're too competitive to like let yourself
If
and
you
so that's
apply
kind of how that
yourself, you
happened.
will succeed. So do it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that was funny because when the time I saw you after DEF
Hmm.
CON, we went to DerbyCon, and then it was like last minute. Chris was like, "Hey, can you be on a panel? You'll be with Wendy and Alethe and Chris Silvers," and I'm just like, this was not in the job description. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've literally been fishing for
I
4 months. Like, or
I
you
don't want to
want me up
like
there?
throw Chris under the bus at all, but I'm pretty sure that he had no idea what that panel was going to be until like the day before.
It was a little last minute. Yeah. Yeah.
And
But,
so I was like,
being
I know
put in
I'm in a panel, I just
situation,
don't know what we're doing.
yeah, being on in a situation like that though was almost new to me. I like to be very prepared,
Yeah.
which I think you know about
Not
me.
not
I
having a
need to have it
plan is
prepared. I need
something
to have
that
a plan. And then that was just, well, actually just going into this entire career and working with Chris has kind of been just like that. Just do it and see what
yeah.
happens. And it's
But
been really
but
good for me in a lot of ways.
yes, yeah. And I will say, like, becoming a parent just forces that on you very,
I can
very
only
much so.
imagine.
Like, you cannot there's only so much planning you can do
Yeah,
when you're at the grocery store and somebody has puked into your bra. Like, there are some situations that you
true.
can't really anticipate with kids, and so you
Well,
get to this
okay.
point where you're just kind of like, all right, I guess we're winging it.
It is what
And
it is.
it is what it is. Like with the first kid, it's so funny because with the first kid, I was like super neurotic first time parent. Like, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm worried about everything. I need to plan all the things. I need a diaper bag that weighs 50 pounds because it's full of every known thing that could be needed at any time. And with the last kid, I was like, yeah, we're leaving the house. I got a diaper and we're good. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said for, putting yourself in situations that are uncomfortable to
Mhm.
you and challenging yourself and having those difficult conversations. When I first started consulting, I had, like, I was everything. I did the sales, the marketing, the actual work, the report writing, the delivery, everything was me. And then I started doing that for like a multi-billion-dollar company. And then it was like things got real. Like, I'm dealing with states, I'm dealing with counties, I'm dealing with Fortune 500 companies, and they've got all these expectations. And I would like get on there and I'm like, I'm the expert, but I'm freaking mortified. And just making myself do the thing and get comfortable with talking to people and explaining things and comfortable with
Getting
project
comfortable
planning
with
and
being uncomfortable.
telling
The
people that they
weird,
owe me money and that they haven't
yeah,
paid me yet. Like, those
that
kind of
is.
things are really tough to talk about. And this, I mean, this really happens to
Mhm.
everybody, I think. And if you can put yourself in a situation where you challenge yourself, you are only going to give yourself an opportunity um, to grow,
Yeah,
really. I
agreed.
mean, you challenge yourself, you have an opportunity for growth. You can grow in a variety of different ways.
Yeah,
Um,
failing can make you
yeah,
grow
failing
even
can
better than
definitely help you
succeeding.
grow.
I've had a few of those moments the last 2 years. I'm like, I
I
hate
am
this.
I am a first
But
kid, and I just learned the hard way. That's the way that I learn. And
yeah,
there's no other way to really put that eloquently, but yeah, I failed a lot.
yeah,
And
same.
so it's good. I think it's great. And life experience, like the folks that I know that are excellent social engineers, are the people that have really been through some adversity, and they've
Mhm.
had to learn things like how to read people and how
Right,
to anticipate somebody's next move and behaviorally understand what motivates somebody to do something. And,
right.
as much as I, regret all of my terrible relationships, they taught me so much that, I can tell when somebody's lying. I can tell when somebody's on
Absolutely.
drugs. I can tell when somebody's, disingenuine. I can read people's faces. I know when my clients are full of it. Yeah, we do that. It's in our policy. No, you don't. There's a lot to be said for experience. And while I took kind of a what do you call it? Unconventional route into information security. I think that social engineering is a wonderful way for people to get into this field. It's a good stepping stone, and it's really allowed me to learn a bunch of new skills and upskill myself on the technical side and stuff too.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
I still like know nothing about computers. I can fake being an IT person really well. I'm
Me
studying
too.
for my A plus right now just because I thought like this will help me.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I like
"No,
I just I
what
just
was I
did my
doing?"
security plus because I was like, I need to
Oh,
prove I belong here. So I
I
just
s-
did my sec
yeah,
plus and I just
that's
did my
awesome.
CEH and I was like, holy moly.
I was
But
starting,
it's still
I was like, oh, Security Plus looks super interesting. I was reading, like watching some videos, and then Ryan, Ryan's like, maybe you should start with your A plus. And I'm like, you know what?
oh
You're right. You're right. You're right. Like I know nothing, but it's you gotta start
yeah.
somewhere.
And afterward bug me because I'll give you all my resources that I used. But
Yes, definitely.
I feel
Oh,
like
I
I feel
sorry.
like book educated rather than practically
Yeah, it's
educated.
different.
Still, like I got the cert, but I don't really like I can like put together a network by myself or something crazy like that.
I feel like that's gonna be me if I pass this. uh, I don't know. I think the best way I've learned so far is when I was able to actually, get a computer in front of me, take it apart and point
hmm
and talk about it. That part I have down now.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the
yeah.
book, anyway, sorry, we have 5 minutes and you have something very exciting to do. You are going to do a raffle, is that right?
Yes. So
Okay.
we're raffling off a Hack the Box VIP 1 year subscription. And this is going to somebody who is on my team who has selected me as a champion from the ILF Hero program.
Can you give just a
Um,
little blurb about what that means and what that is?
The Hero program is a program that allows people to contribute money to support the Innocent Lives Foundation. They can either submit a monthly recurring commitment or they can do a one-time donation. And that allows the ILF to keep doing ILF things. So I am an ambassador for the ILF. I'm very proud to support the ILF, doing fundraising through offering trainings and things like that. If you select me as your champion, I get super, super important bragging rights if you're willing to do that. And these are the monthly recurring revenue streams that the ILF needs to keep their employees employed so that they can keep hunting the online predators that we are trying to get off of the internet and then provide that information to law enforcement to make all of this work. So it is very
Absolutely.
important. And if you pick me and nobody else, then I will appreciate that very much.
Do it. And if you guys
I see tiny spiders are objecting to that messaging.
we have a little bit of friendly competition. We have had just over $10 in donations tonight, which is great. You guys do exclamation donate in the chat, then it'll bring up the link where you can view that. But Alethe, do you want to go ahead with your raffle? Sure. Okay, awesome. Perfect. That's beautiful. I'm just looking over at that screen. Yes. So that's Alethe's page. You can go donate under her there. Pick her. Do that.
You honestly, you can pick whoever you love the best. Really, it doesn't matter. The money all goes to the same place, and it is nice for me to give Chris Hadnaggy some garbage on Twitter about it. But ultimately,
Please.
whoever you choose, that money is going to go to a great place and to a very worthy cause. So I appreciate all of that. And to those who have been donating on a recurring basis for the past year, absolutely incredible. And we decided to include everyone in this raffle. And I believe Mandy has the initials of the winner for us, and she will provide that to me.
So the winner's initials are CD.
Awesome. And we will be contacting that person. I didn't feel comfortable revealing whole names, just hashtag security. So we'll be contacting that person to award them their prize following this. Give us a few days because we're tired. And if anyone else wants to follow up with me, the best place to find me is on Twitter at Alethe Denis with one N. But thank you everybody for hanging out to listen to me waffle on. And thank you to Shelby for hosting this evening. It's been super fun, and everyone else
Thanks
for
for
joining.
coming.
I always enjoy hanging out with this team, and I cannot wait until we get to do that in real life again.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that so much. I never thought that Derby would be the last time I've seen you or anyone
know.
else in person. And I'm just,
I know.
oh,
My
yay.
last one was RSA in February, and everybody was like, "This is silly." And then the very next month, everything was like, "Oh, this is real."
Yep. Oh man. Okay. Well, everyone, I hope to see some of you guys at the Human Hacking Conference this weekend. We're gonna have a lot of good fishing tracks, a lot of really, really incredible trainers. You can buy day tickets now if anyone's interested. So take a look there. We hope to see you, and then hopefully next year we'll see you and Alethe in person at
I
different
hear
cons.
somebody's doing a training at that. Is that true?
Yes, someone is.
Someone like Shelby?
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
So me and a fellow colleague of mine, Kurt, will be doing one of the fishing training days. It's gonna be a lot of fun. You'll get to hear some of our fishing calls that we've done and some of the tips and tricks, along as well as some of the ones that Alethe and I have discussed a little bit tonight. We'll delve into a little bit deeper, so it'll be fun. And I hope to see you
That
guys
alone, honestly, is worth the price of admission, in my opinion.
there.
It's gonna
Well,
be
it's
I can't
as
listen to
as you're
fishing
sitting.
calls anywhere else.
It's true. It's true. And that's why I love having a team and a SECTF and just getting to hear it. It makes it really fun. So, Alethe, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll have to have you on again because we didn't even get to talk about your chicken.
I know. I didn't even get to talk about
And
chickens. This is so just Mandy's gonna kill
I
me.
have so many questions I want to ask
That's
about
the
your
only
chicken.
reason I
So.
even came. So
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Good night, everyone.